Okay. Now, Mr. Schweikert, you've hammered Mr. Mitchell pretty hard over health care. Some of the specifics in the bill, ending prohibition on pre-existing conditions, stopping lifetime caps on usage, creating greater access. Do you oppose those things?
Oh, no. In matter of fact, if you even go back to my time 14 years ago in the state legislature, I actually, for a short time, actually chaired the health committee. And we worked on things, the ideas of how do you design risk pools? How do you even, if necessary, maybe even have government reinsurance on some of them? There are solutions to this that don't nuke the healthcare system. And a really fair question. How many of you have gotten a recent healthcare premium and seen dramatic increases coming at you? My wife and I are out. I mean, the fact of the matter is this healthcare bill with $1 trillion cost, we were promised when it was voted for it was going to be a cost savings. Now we know just the opposite has happened. Now, how many of you run businesses or part of organizations where you're going to have to start filling out 1099s for every $600? How many of you are basically watching the doctors walking away from Medicare because of how many of us are going to get shoved into that environment and that system?
So what would you have done differently?
I would have basically said, look, here's our problem. I have people who are uninsured. I have people who have pre-existing. I have severe asthma. You know, I grew up, I spent part of my childhood in an oxygen tent with asthma. The fact of the matter is someone like me has a pre-existing condition. There's ways to take care of those populations without destroying the 81% of this district that actually liked their health care.
And what are those ways?
Risk pools, portability, my ability to buy across state lines, my ability to move the tax deductibility to me as the individual. I mean, you know, they're out there. And the nice thing is there's a number of Democrats and Republicans that like these. I understand the politics became overwhelming, but this bill is going to march us down to an economic flat line and a lot of very, very unhappy healthcare consumers.
Mr. Coons, your position on the healthcare bill?
Well, I don't support the bill. I think it doesn't recognize what the problem is. It doesn't recognize that the reasons that are causing the problems, you know, as far as healthcare being expensive and being inaccessible, it doesn't really address those things. It tries to just kind of throw Band-Aids all over everything. If you look at the reason for the cost of anything in the market, it's either because demand is going up or supply is going down as far as costs going up. In the case of healthcare, supply is being artificially limited, usually by the federal government, that prevents access to drugs by not letting them being released to the market when they're proven safe in other countries, by limiting the number of people that can be doctors every year, by limiting the number or limiting people who have medical expertise to be able to actually practice. And, you know, if you're not actually a doctor, you're a nurse practitioner, you know how to do certain things, but you're not allowed to. Those restrictions should all be loosened up so that people who know how to provide these services can do that, and we get rid of that artificial supply limitation, prices will start to drop pretty quickly.
Did you want to respond to anything here?
Just a couple of these. One, a number of the things that were mentioned earlier are in the bill or portions of the bill. For example, across state lines. Right now, this bill would allow states to enter into compacts with other states to buy insurance across state lines. The idea of doctors. This bill also provides loans and loan forgiveness and encouraging people to go into primary care and family practitioners. Even not only the doctors, but also nurse practitioners as well as physician's assistants. So there's a lot in the bill. And there's a lot of things in the bill that I think that was mentioned that will come out. I understand about the 1099s and that tax. And I want you to know that I voted to repeal that. And it passed the House to repeal the 1099 requirement. So it's there, and I think by the time we come back, it'll be gone.
Well, and to the good congressman's comments, you just heard him talking about some of the things that he likes in the bill. But you'd notice his version of them all required a government program to do it. We're going the other direction of saying, if I want to buy health insurance from a company in Iowa because they have the great price and it's what I want, my state shouldn't be putting it together and doing it. I should be able to buy it.
But the thing is, it's right now the state's responsibility. The states control that. The federal government doesn't do that. The states control that. So I think what he's asking is to have the states be preempted by the federal government and say, forget all you state regulations, we'll just have the federal government do it. That's what it sounds like to me, because right now states can do
Would
this.
that be a bad thing?
Well, I think it may come to that eventually. It may come to that. But right now, it's the state's responsibility, and I'm not for taking away the state's rights on this.
Okay. I got to jump out. You got to
I'm going to let you admit on
that
Mr.
one,
first.
that one.
Yeah.
It is the state legislatures that regulates, what health insurance must cover, but it is the federal government's job to regulate or to not regulate what people can buy across state lines. If I want to go buy something from, you mentioned Iowa, that's the Interstate Commerce Clause. That's an issue for the federal government to determine. It's not an issue for the states to say, no, you can't go to Iowa and buy that. So the federal government plan should allow me to do that directly without having to go through a different state. At that point, the state legislatures might reduce the requirements as far as what insurance must cover in states where it's extremely onerous, making them more competitive, causing insurance premiums to go down overall.
Mr. Schweikert.
Yeah, and we made a commitment that we weren't going to be mean here, so I want to be careful not to use sarcasm or those things. But the fact of the matter is, I want to protect states' rights, but I'm going to do a bill that mandates that the state, actually does the compact. Does anyone follow the line of logic? Because it smashes into a wall here. The reality of it is you already are starting to see some cross-states purchasing because people are setting up types of trusts to do it. And it's actually starting to become a fairly healthy and competitive market. So a number of entrepreneurs have found ways around the state regulators. Look, you either believe in government top-down management control with 158 boards and commissions in this health care bill, or that markets, properly managed, properly incentivized, will serve us well. It's just you're on one side of the philosophy or the other.
One of the great things about this bill is that it does work with the market, and it does encourage competitiveness. For the very first time, insurance companies will be competing against each other for all of our insurance business. They don't do that now, but they will do that under the market system that is set up in the exchange. Let me give you an example. When I taught at Tempe High School, one of the things that about every 2 years there would be an insurance committee formed by the staff and the faculty. And they went through and say, well, what are the things that we want? Well, obviously the younger faculty members wanted maternity benefits. The older faculty members wanted hearing and vision. Well, whatever the vote was, that's what they got. But then it was the school district that negotiated with the insurance company, not the individuals. So some of those people who wanted vision and didn't get it will be able to do that under this new system that comes into effect in 2014. That's where we have competition for the first time among insurance companies, and that's when the market will really go to work.
Okay, I'm sure we could spend a full hour talking about this.
And there's...
But let's go on to the next subject, if you all don't mind. Social Security, headed towards insolvency. How should the problem be addressed? Mr. Schweikert, we'll start with you on this.
Okay, first off, from a personal philosophy, Social Security is a social contract. It's something our government has made with us. It's a deal. If we're Americans, we step up and stand up to our deals. There are some things you and I could do to start working around the edges of Social Security to at least try to move its solvency date outwards. Some are quirky ideas coming to you if you're a high net worth individual and saying, would you allow us to buy out your annuity? If I gave you back your cash, would you allow us to remove you from the system? There's some creative economics such as that. But the fact of the matter is, with the ratio the way it is, even if you have commissions and a Congress that steps up and says, we're moving the retirement age out, we're even going to move compensation or deposits into the system, the fact of the matter is, you're heading towards a time where it's going to be touching general fund revenues. My understanding is this year on Social Security, if you get a check, part of that money is being borrowed because of what's happened to Social Security revenues this year. It's the reality.
So what would you do to change it? Do we need to raise the retirement age?
I think actually this is one where you're going to step up. You're going to try to get both Republicans and Democrats to stop using it as a knife in the back because it is the ultimate wedge issue. Bush tries to create a Social Security Commission, the Democrats stab him. Obama tries to create a Social Security Commission, and the Republicans stab him. At some point, it's got to become more about the people of this country than the political wedge. And yes, it may be stepping up the retirement age. It may be buying out folks who are willing to have their annuity side bought out. You've got to put it all on the table.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, the Social Security is not borrowing money to pay anybody's Social Security. The Social Security funds, and I am on Social Security, my wife's on Social Security, and I would never do anything to jeopardize Social Security. But the Social Security has a huge trust fund. That's where the money's coming from. There will be no borrowing for Social Security. In fact, it's just the opposite. The federal government borrows from the Social Security Trust Fund.
Please.
The Social Security Fund and the trust fund that is there is in very good hands and very solvent. So to say that the Social Security is borrowing money to pay benefits, that's absolutely false. But I also want to...
But let's come back to the original question, which is, it is headed towards insolvency. How would you fix it?
Well, there's a couple of ways. One is already in the process, and that is raising, of course, the retirement age, but also everything should be on the table. The fact that some people say we should raise the cap on the tax, not raise the tax, but just raise the cap on it.
The income cap?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a simple way to do it. But I think that's also got to be on the table, and also the benefits. And so there's a number of things that should be discussed that aren't discussed. I think what should not be discussed, because I think it is a wrong way to go, is the idea of privatizing Social Security. I think when you do that, you put it at risk. We saw what happened when people wanted to, who invested in some 401ks, what happened when the stock market fell down. This is the same thing that would happen. It would put all of our Social Security at risk if it was privatized. I'm for strengthening Social Security and for protecting it, and I think that we are not in the process right now, or in the mode of borrowing money to pay for Social Security benefits. That is not what we're doing.
Do you support privatizing Social Security?
No, I don't think it would work mechanically.
Okay. Nick, I want
and
to
then we'll come back, because I want to...
I'll come back to you, but I do want Nick to have a little time to talk about Social Security.
Yeah, well, I think Social Security participation, both in paying into it and drawing from it, obviously those two would be linked, should be optional. Someone who decides, I don't want to collect Social Security when I retire, or I don't want to be part of the system, should be able to opt out and then keep that 12.5% that the employer keeps out of their paycheck and also pays on their side. I mean, a lot of people here, if they had an extra 12.5% on their paycheck, probably could find better ways to invest it than what the government's doing, and maybe get better returns later on. In a lot of cases, even stuffing it under the mattress. If you still like the idea of Social Security, then keep paying into it and collect it when when you retire. So that would just be completely optional. What would happen is there'd be a lot of market options that would pop up, where companies would provide options and financial assistance as far as showing you how to invest that money or how to get better returns on it. With all these different options available, there'd be a lot of competition. So you'd have Social Security with maybe 100 other different types of programs, and you, since it's your money, you made it, you can decide where the money goes. I mean, I think the idea here we have between Mr. Schweikert and Mr. Mitchell showing differences in opinions of the strengths of Social Security, one of them saying that it's going to fall apart any day, one of them saying that it's really strong, kind of supports the idea that people should be able to put their money where they want, because they want to say, well, you know what, I don't know if I trust this over here, I'm going to put it over here because I know what this is. But it's your money, it's your choice.
Okay.
10 seconds, and here's where the Congressman and I are talking around each other. Social Security money reaches over, loans their cash to federal government. Okay? Federal government now, to cover our budget deficits, every dollar the federal government spends today, they borrow 41 cents. The fact of the matter is, there isn't a penny in the Social Security fund, but there's a whole lot of U.S. Treasury bills.
Right. There's over $2 trillion right now in the Social Security Trust Fund.
All borrowed money.
It's all paid for. It's all been paid for by payroll taxes. The money is there. It's not borrowed money.